Okay, there's two things that I can common factor out of an expression. What can I common factor out of this first piece here, this 3y squared minus 6y? What can I common factor out of that, Austin? I can common factor out of 3y. So whatever the greatest common factor is, I take it outside. Then what's the next thing that I have to put in? Nathan? Good, but what do I need right here? Good. So I love exactly what Nathan said. I take this 3y squared and I divide it by my common factor. 3 divided by 3 gives me 1. What again do I do with this y squared y? Subtract. There is a 2 here, 1 here. So I'm left with just 1y or y. What will I write after this? What do I write after that, Austin? Minus 2. 6 divided by 3 gives me 2. My y's would cancel out. I end that with a bracket. What do I do for the next one up here? 7t squared minus 14t cubed. What would I common factor out of that? Nick? Good. 7t squared. Why did I factor out a t squared, Nick? Beautiful. Lowest exponent. Now this one's a little bit tricky. What do I put on the inside of that bracket? Jen? 1 minus, not 7t. What do I put for that, Rob? Okay, I like the 2. It's just t. So 7 divided by 7 gives me 1. My t squared and t squared, 2 minus 2 gives me 0. 14 divided by 7 gives me 2. Then I do 3 subtract 2, which gives me 1t. Okay, what about this next one here? This is a bit of a long one. What is my common factor for this here? Jericho? 3xy. Excellent. I'm taking the lowest exponent, 2, 1, 3. What do I get when I factor that out for each term? What do I get? Jenny? Mm-hmm. No. Okay, I have the 1. Zach? Good. So again, when we are factoring out variables, we're subtracting the exponents. 2 minus 1, 3 minus 1 gives me with this. An xy and xy leaves me with nothing. 3 minus 1 gives me 2. 2 minus 1 gives me 1. Okay, this next one here. What do I do for this last one? Austin? What's common to both of those terms? Yeah, this is a common binomial. So I factor that out of each one. No. So I factored out the 8 minus 4. I'm left with 3x minus 1. That was a common binomial. Gentlemen? Okay, you're going to be quizzed on this tomorrow, including what we've done today. And today we're combining both of those steps. If this were your quiz, how many of you would have gotten perfect on this if these 4 questions were on there? Okay. Again, that kind of, it should give you an indication. Our goal for today is we are going to factor by grouping. So it's combining both common factoring all together. Yes. You're welcome. Okay, so this is tying up, putting this all together. We're going to have to use this every day it's building, which is why it's important to be here and to be here on time so you don't miss all this good stuff. Factor by grouping. Guys, you don't need the markers right now. Okay, factor by grouping is a technique that can be used if there are an even, and the majority of the time you're going to see this when there are 4 terms. Okay? So here is an example where we would do a factor by grouping x, y, a, y, or sorry, ax, ay, wx, wy. What we do for our first step here is we separate the terms into groups, usually groups of 2. Each group should have something in common. This one's kind of already nice because it's already grouped. What is common with these first 2 terms if I were to do this? What do they have? Thanks, Nick, for raising your hand. They both have an A. I can group these last terms together. What do they have in common? Thanks, Ben, for the thumb raise. Okay, so I have these are already grouped. And when it says separate the terms into group, I've separated them kind of by putting brackets around them. So this is saying this is my first group, this is my second group. My second step, I have to factor the greatest common factor from each group out. What is my common factor for this first group here, which we've already said? Nathan? A. I'm just doing my first group. So A. So I'm going to take A, write it outside the bracket. What will I be left with when I divide everything by A? Austin? X plus Y. What can I factor out of my second group? What can I factor out of my second group? Ben, what did you say? Good. What do you notice here? What do you notice, Nick? Yeah. Be amazed, ladies and gentlemen. We factored something small out, and look what happens. I now have a common binomial. This is when you all do the because it's so awesome. So I'm going to factor this out. This x plus y outside there, what will I have left over when I factor out that common binomial? What will I have? Austin? A plus W. Okay, I want you to take 30 seconds, have a look at it, and then ask me any questions you want about what I just did. You're all okay with this? Austin? Nope. So Austin asked a good question. Does it matter if you put AW first? No, because you're still multiplying. As long as you have the 2 binomials that are the same, you're good. Okay, we're going to look at some a little bit more maybe complex examples. If I look here at the first one, I can kind of already group it. Here are my 2 groups. These would be my 2 groups. What can I common factor out of that first group? Jericho? A. So what would I write, Jericho? Beautiful. So the trick here with factoring by grouping, you should always have a common binomial. So when I factor something out of this next group, I should have A plus 3. What do I have to factor out of this second group? This one's a bit tricky. Nathan? If I factor out a B, Okay, so I'm going to do it if I factor out a plus b, I'm left with negative 3. What did you say? This saying this negative 3 is negative. Okay, so if I factor out just the b, I'm left with this, and this brings us to our problem that we had yesterday. Do you remember what happened here that we had to do, Nick? Yeah, these are opposites. This 3 is positive, this 3 is negative. This A is positive, this A is negative. How do I do that, Nick? Good. Pardon? You said the minus A. It's not minus A. Okay? So here's generally the rule of thumb is if you have negative signs, factor it out. See how both of these are negative? You want to try and factor them out so you don't have to do this double step. You could have done this one step and factored out the negative b, but that's okay if you didn't. Now I have a common binomial. It doesn't look exactly the same, but if I were to flip these two, which I can, that's a common binomial. So what would be my final answer here? Austin? A plus 3 in brackets. Perfect. Anyone have any questions about that one? Okay, how about the next one? What can I do here? What could I do? Yep.
In the last one, did you just factor out an A and a 3?
For the first part?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like the last part.
This last part? I factored out this. That's common. That's the same, so I factored that out. And then I was left with A minus B. Okay, Nick? Yep. Hmm? You can group 2. Okay, so what do I write, Nick? What can I factor out of this? And what am I left with? So if I look here at my second group, technically what could I factor out? I would factor out a positive 1. If I factor out a positive 1, nothing changes. And then look here. You'll always know if this is correct because you should have two binomials that are exactly the same. So even though there was nothing to factor out here, you're still factoring out that positive 1. So what am I left with here? What's my final step going to be, Rob? Excellent. Are you okay with that? Nick, you okay with it? Do you understand what we're doing? Ask me any questions. Okay. All right. The next one, again, I can factor something. These are nice because they're kind of already written in a way that they're already really grouped. So if I were to group these based on this, what would I factor out of that first group? What did I factor out of the first group? Austin? You could. Nathan? Okay, is there anything else I could factor? X. So again, my greatest common factor is 2 between 2 and 6. I have x squared x, so I'm factoring out the x. What am I left with when I factor out 2x from there? Jenny?
X plus y. 1x plus y.
Okay, when I factor, I divide. So it's saying 6x squared divided by 2x. What's 6 divided by 2? When I have x squared and x, what am I left with? X squared divided by x.
1.
So just x. When I factor 2x out of 2xy, I divide, so what am I left with?
Just y.
Good. What do I factor out of my second binomial? Or my second group here? Zach? Good. -5. So when I factor out a -5, that means I divide each one of these terms by -5. What am I left with? 3x plus y. Because I'm taking -5 divided by -5 leaves me with just positive y. Nick? Say that one more time. Yeah, that's all you can factor out right here. You could, but then you're left with -3x minus y. Yeah, and it makes it longer. Hello? Hey. Yes, she is. Yep. Okay. All right. Caitlin, you got to go clear your attendance. Okay. What do I do next now? Zach, go ahead. Excellent. Anyone have any questions with this, or are we okay? All right. The next one here. I'm going to do this example a little bit different. Do you have to do it different? No. But I'm going to just show you that you can manipulate this. So right away I look here, I have a 2y cubed here, and I have a minus 2y here. Well, I could group those two together. Even though they're not side by side, I could still move them around. So I could write this as 2y cubed and minus 2y. What would I write after that? Austin? Okay, so I'm just rechanging the order here, and you can do that. And then now I can, again, common factor from each one of these groups. So what can I common factor out of those blue terms there? What could I common factor? Jenny?
2y.
Mm-hmm. And what am I left with?
You're left with 1 plus y.
No. I divide 2y cubed divided by 2y. What do I get? 2 divided by 2 gives me what? Okay. Y cubed divided by y gives me what? So I'm left with y squared. 2y divided by 2y, I'm left with just 1. Okay, what do I do for the next one? What would I common factor out of that next one? Austin? Because of the negative sign in front, I'm going to factor out a negative. So I have here -5. And then what am I left with? Y squared. Because I'm factoring out a negative, the signs in the middle, or the signs here change. Factor out that -5, that means this becomes positive, this becomes negative. Jenny?
How come we would put the minus 1 at the end?
Pardon?
How come we would put the minus 1 at the end?
Because it's positive 5 divided by negative 5. In fact, we know to negative 5. So when I do positive 5 divided by negative 5, I'm left with negative 1. Okay, what do I do next? What do I do next to finish this up? Zach? Very good. That's my final answer. Does anyone have any questions about this? Okay, so again, I just showed you this is a different example that you could have moved the terms so that you could group something different together, okay, which is absolutely okay. I would like you to try these 3 examples on your desk with your partners.